Hey guys! So I've applied to colleges twice now. The first time around I applied exclusively to Ivy League schools and I didn't get into any of them. The second time around I took some time to research what I personally wanted and which schools I wanted to go to. I ended up applying to a few UCs and a bunch of small liberal arts schools on the East Coast mostly. And while I got into all of them, I didn't get any financial aid. And for the first time, I actually had to seriously consider the cost of college. This is something that I feel like doesn't really get talked about. People kind of default to, oh, college is gonna be so great in the long term. You're gonna get a better job. You're gonna make so much more money than you would if you didn't go to college in the first place. But there are actually some really serious financial implications to college. I know people in their 40s who are still making payments of $800 a month on their student loans, not including interest. So today I wanted to examine the payment trajectory for student loans for the top 5 most popular majors in America. I did a little bit of research, and according to Niche Blog, Best Colleges blog, and the National Center for Education Statistics, the top 5 most popular majors in America are business, health professionals, social sciences, history, psychology, all kind of lumped together, biology and biomedical, and lastly, engineering. Before I try to come up with the calculations for projected earnings for each of these majors, it's important to hone in on the average cost of college in America. Now, this varies based on a few important factors. The most important one being the type of institution that you attend. The cost of college is going to be different if you go to community college, if you go to a public school in-state, if you go to a public school out-of-state, or if you go to a private four-year institution. I'll put the links to my research down below in the description, but according to my calculations, the average student loan debt that someone who goes to community college leaves with or graduates with is $17,000. For someone who goes to a public in-state college, that debt comes out to be $25,000 over the course of the 4 years. For public out-of-state, it's $41,000, and for private colleges, it's $51,000. So as you can see, there's a huge range here. For the purposes of this activity, I'm going to be focusing on the cost of an out-of-state 4-year public university, which again is $41,000. I wasn't able to find the math on what the most common institution is in the United States, but I thought it was some good middle ground because I wanted to focus on 4-year colleges, so maybe I'll make a separate video on community colleges, and this was a good middle ground between the in-state and the private institution. So $41,000 is the number we're going with. Some other factors that greatly influence how much you're paying out of pocket for college include financial aid. In my personal case, I didn't receive any need-based financial aid. I was only eligible for merit-based scholarships. So my cheapest offer was for a public out-of-state university, and they gave me a tuition rate of $18,000 a year. So over the course of 4 years, the cost of this out-of-state public university for me personally would have been $72,000. That's how much money I would have had to pay after graduating. Again, that was my cheapest offer. Most of my other offers from those smaller private liberal arts schools, I didn't get any scholarship money for. They don't offer merit scholarships because everybody would deserve a merit scholarship at their institution. So for me, I would have had to pay the full tuition cost, which was about $72,000 for 4 years. So the amount that I would have graduated with for that 4-year out-of-state public university was equivalent to 1 year of tuition at these private schools. So $72,000 per year at these private schools times 4 years would have come out to be $288,000. More than $250,000. That shock of seeing that number was what made me question the value of college. What degree from a liberal arts school is worth $250,000 for somebody who's paying fully out of pocket? My anthropology degree was not going to pay for itself by any means. getting a little too worked up here. The two other factors that can also influence the cost of your college are the region/state that you go to, and also other expenses like room and board. Again, as a reminder, we're just going to stick with this average $41,000 for a public out-of-state college. Now, let's look at the projected income for each of the top 5 majors that I mentioned earlier. Starting with business. A business degree can lead into a few different career paths, namely accounting, finance, economics, international business, marketing, and business administration. Now, for the purposes of this activity, I'm going to be looking at the projected earnings for the first 1 to 4 years that you're in any of these career paths. But it's also important to note that the average salary for each of these individual careers is going to vary a little bit. But according to my very loose calculations, all of these different career paths have an average entry-level/early career salary of $55,000. According to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the standard repayment of a federal student loan is 10 years. So if we have a student loan debt of $41,000 divided by the 10 years that we have to pay it back, we're looking at $4,100 of student loan payments every single year, which ends up being about $341.66 per month. To put this into perspective, the federal government considers health insurance to be unaffordable at 9.8% of your average annual income, okay? So, for a business degree, if you're making $55,000 a year and you're paying $4,100 of those towards your student loan payments, that comes out to be 7.4% of your annual income. Again, 9.8 is considered unaffordable by the federal government. Moving on to the next most popular major, which is loosely grouped under health professionals. There are a bunch of different career paths that one could take with a health professional degree, including healthcare administration, nurse practitioner, registered nurse, diet and nutrition, sports medicine, and public health. These careers are drastically different one from another, not only in nature, but also in entry-level/early career salary amounts, ranging anywhere from about $35,000 a year to $75,000 a year. So it was really difficult for me to hone in on an average number here, but I went with $60,000 because a lot of these careers can actually be pretty lucrative. So, assuming that you're making $60,000 in the first 4 years that you're in one of these careers and paying, again, $4,100 of those each year towards your student payments, you will be spending 6.8% of your annual salary on your student loan repayments. All right, moving on to the third most popular major category, umbrellaed as social sciences, history, and psychology. Again, there are a myriad of different careers that one could follow with any of these degrees, including anthropology, history, political science, social work, psychology, or sociology. To be honest, it was really hard to find concrete data on salary levels for most of these positions. And not to mention that in my personal experience, people who come out with majors in any of these fields don't actually work in careers that are related. For example, most people that I know with liberal arts types degrees work in customer service, work in the restaurant sector, hospitality. So it is really hard to anticipate how much money you can expect to make with any of these majors, but I did my best and I came up with a calculation of about $40,000, which I feel is pretty generous, but again, I did the best with the data that I could find. So assuming that we're making $40,000 a year for the first 4 years that we're in any of these social science type careers, and we're paying $4,100 of those each year towards our student loan repayments, we are paying 10.3% of our annual income towards those student loan repayments, which is higher than the 9.8% that the federal government considers to be unaffordable for health insurance, but still. 10% of your annual income might not sound like that much when you just put it in numerical format like that, But that is no small chunk of change right there, especially when you have other expenses coming out of college like rent. That's huge. All right, moving on to the fourth most popular major category, engineering. There are tons of engineering careers out there, including but not limited to chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, industrial engineering, aerospace engineering, civil engineering, and electrical engineering. These all have a wide range of entry-level salaries, but they're all doing just fine for themselves. So on average, let's say that your typical engineer in America can make about $75,000 in the first 1 to 4 years that they are working in their job, which, to be honest, I think is a pretty conservative estimate. But making $75,000 a year and paying off $4,100 of that for your student loans ends up being 5.47% of your total annual income, which is by far the lowest on this list today. And lastly, the fifth most popular major in America, grouped as biology / biomedical major. There are, again, very different career paths that one can take, including biology, chemistry, biochemistry, environmental science, and microbiology, that have a pretty wide range of entry-level salaries. I think environmental science tends to be on the lower end of the spectrum, whereas chemistry and biochemistry tends to be a little bit higher. But I settled on an average entry / early career salary of $65,000, and the $4,100 of student loan ends up being 6.3% of your annual earnings. All right, guys, that's all I had prepared today. Hopefully I was able to put some perspective on the real cost of college, or at least start the conversation that I feel like most people aren't having anyway. Obviously, there are tons and tons and tons of other considerations and factors that I wasn't able to touch on in today's video, including but not limited to the cost of living after college and the growth potential of each of these careers, the number of jobs available, etc., etc. But hopefully this was a little bit helpful in guiding you towards the right decision for you. And maybe I'll make another one of these videos and go a little bit more in depth and not say 4,150 bajillion times, because we get it. We get it. All right, guys, I'll see you later.